Everybody. We're just waiting for some people to join up here. We'll give it a few more minutes, and then we will get started. Thanks so much for all of you out there who are joining us. We'll be getting going here in just a minute. All right, are you guys ready? All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and kind of dive right in here, guys. Thanks again for everybody for joining us. My name is Nick Barta. I'm with Security First Financial. A little bit about me. I've been in the industry for about 36 years. We do a lot of down payment assistance loans, more than anybody in the state of Colorado. I've been a top FHA lender in the country prior to this, and we still do a lot of other kind of loans. So we do a little bit of everything, but we do somewhat specialize in first-time home buyers and down payment assistance. Today, I know a lot of you guys are kind of tuning in with all of the changes in kind of the NAR settlement and how you guys have to disclose commissions and as a listing agent, a buyer's agent, kind of what has changed. We won't dive into the legalities or the nuts and bolts of that, but I did want to, kind of cover how you can use down payment assistance to assist you when you do run into that situation where you're not, where maybe the seller's not paying the full commission or they're not paying any commission at all. So we'll cover that a little bit. There were some, the good news is that CHFA, Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, which they've made some changes. We're going to go through the changes kind of that those guys have done over the last couple of months. There's some really exciting things that CHFA has done. There's some really exciting things that Metro DPA has done. So we'll kind of cover those things. And first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about the commission side of it, because I know a lot of you tuned in for that. So CHFA came out recently, just on August 30th, and said that you can, the buyers can, at this point, they can use any of the CHFA programs as long as it is allowed by the loan type. They can use any of the down payment assistance towards buyer's agent commissions. So good news for everybody. We don't, if somebody's short, even if somebody has their down payment, but you run into that situation where they need to come up with more money to help cover your commissions, down payment assistance may be a great way to turn, because we'll kind of go over the basics of it. But that's something where there's more money available for the buyer. If they don't have a down payment, and you get some seller concessions, you can use the concessions for, directly for closing costs. You can still use the down payment assistance to cover your commissions. So really exciting stuff. That's what CHFA. Metro DPA's been a little tougher. They've just been slow and dragging their feet a little bit on answering that question. Right now, they haven't really, they've said up to this point that you can't use their down payment assistance to cover buyer's agent commission. However, there may be a situation where you can, you can use buyer's funds to cover it or seller's funds to cover it, and then still be able to use Metro DPA. So all of that is good news. Certainly the CHAFA announcement is great news for real estate agents on the buyer side. It's just going to give you a lot more flexibility. So, but I did want to go through, so, we're going to cover a little bit of the basics on down payment assistance, just so you kind of have an idea of what is, what is out there and what's available. Some of you are probably very familiar with it. Some of you maybe not so familiar with it, but so the very basic part of this is you need to, borrower needs to have a 620 for CHAFA. They can't make over $162,960 a year. They don't have to be first-time home buyers. Misconception. A lot of times people think you got to be a first-time home buyer to qualify for down payment assistance. So you don't have to, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. In some of the programs allow you to own another property. So a lot of times I get asked, hey, is this just for people who, make less than $50,000 a year? That is a narrative that's pushed out there a lot. I mean, so it's not. Obviously, CHAFA, you can make up to $162,960. With Metro DPA, it's even higher than that. It's $195,600. So you can make pretty good money and still get down payment assistance. So in a nutshell, CHAFA will provide 4% of the loan amount in down payment assistance in the form of a silent second. Call it a silent second because you don't make any payments on it and they don't charge any interest on it. It just kind of sits there. You have to pay it back when you sell the property. If you want to refinance to somebody other than CHAFA down the road, usually you have to roll that into your first mortgage. But it does greatly reduce the amount of money that people have to bring into closing. It does provide them a lot more, as far as options to help, help cover closing costs, down payment, and buyer's agent commissions. So CHAFA is a great way to go. I'm going to cover some of those changes in just a little bit. Metro DPA's biggest announcement that they've made in years and years and years is they just went to the same format as CHAFA. So for years, Metro DPA was, their silent second, still 4%. It came as a silent second that forgave over the first 36 months. Unfortunately, they're not going to do that anymore. It's not going to forgive over the first 36 months. To be honest with you, nobody was using it because to do that, their interest rates were so high. They were a point to 2 points higher than what CHAFA rates were. And so today, what they did is, or not today, but in the last week, what they've done is they've changed that to go to the CHAFA format. And, their interest rates have drastically reduced. Right now the interest rate is right in between the first step rate and the smart step rate for CHAFA. So it makes them a much more viable option. The reason we use Metro DPA when we run into it, sometimes it's rate. Definitely the two times we use it is Metro DPA will allow for a non-occupying co-borrower. So a parent can co-sign for their son or their daughter, for another parent, for a brother or sister, without having to live in the property. CHAFA doesn't allow that. They don't allow non-occupying co-borrowers. So it does leave some flexibility for Metro DPA. The other time we use Metro DPA is when it's more than one unit. If you have a duplex or a triplex, you can use Metro DPA for those multi-unit properties, still get down payment assistance. CHAFA, again, only allows one unit. And then if we happen to be above $162,960 on income, but we're below $195,600, then that's a perfect time for us to use Metro DPA. Debt to income ratios and credit scores are a little bit tighter. Unless you're buying in the city and county of Denver, then it's a 620 FICO score, and the debt to income ratios are just whatever we can get approved through the underwriting system. If it is outside of the city and county of Denver, then you need a 640 FICO score for that. And the FICO scores, if you're under 660 or 680, you're going to be at a 45% max. And if you're at 680 or above, you'll be at a 50% max. So a little bit more conservative than what CHAFA is. CHAFA, their debt to income ratio is under 660. 660 or under, you have to be at a 50. and above 660 you can go to a 55. So and JAFA, all programs have a 620 minimum FICO, so a little more flexibility on that side too. So want to cover, I'm gonna take a couple questions because I know, let's see. So from Laura is asking me, is that combined income or individual income? That's a great question because it kind of depends. So with Metro DPA, it is qualifying income. That means income that we put on the 1003 on the application. So if you have a husband and wife and together they make $300,000 a year, but we only use the husband's income and credit, and we don't put the wife on the loan or the on the ownership, then we can use the husband's income or the wife's income, whichever is under 195,000, and it's just qualifying income. So it's whoever we put on the loan for Metro DPA and for conventional programs with CHAFA and the Smart Step program with CHAFA is qualifying income. Now, the First Step program with CHAFA and First Generation, which I'll go over here in a second, those are household income. So with those two programs, that's going to be everybody who lives in the house. Even if you have a 19-year-old son that lives in the house and he makes money, they're going to ask about his income and include that, and we want to make sure we're under the max for that county. The overall max for CHAFA is 162,960, but for First Generation and for First Step, which have kind of better interest rates on there, those are by county, and they're by family size. So it's going to be 1 or 2 people in a family. That's going to have an income, and it'll be different for Adams County than it is for Weld County. So we can always help you with that. Those are on CHAFA's website at chafainfo.com. Under income limits, you can always take a look at them right there. But if you have 3 or more people in your family, you can make a little bit more. Again, those are going to be by county. So great question on that, Laura. They are, sometimes it's combined income and sometimes it is whoever we put on the application. So we'll usually do an analysis of that when we get an application in and see if it makes sense for us to, to split the borrowers up or, to put them both on. So, but again, good question there. I had a couple questions that came in ahead of time. There was one agent said, my lender said CHAFA loans take 60 days to close. Is that true? It is for some lenders, I guess, but that's vastly, overstated. We close CHAFA loans in 20 days all the time. I think there's a big difference, when you're talking about lenders and down payment assistance. My team and I have closed nearly 10,000 down payment assistance loans. So, we certainly, it's not something that we have to look up or figure out how to do at the last minute, so you've got a lot of lenders out there that just don't do it a whole lot. And so it's an adventure every time they do dive in. We hear all sorts of stories that, we submit it to CHAFA and they take 2 weeks to get us an approval back. CHAFA only reviews the income when we send it in, or income and property. Normally it's less than 24 hours once we turn something in, so it really shouldn't extend any closing times by using down payment assistance or not. Metro DPA is the same way. There's no review with Metro DPA, so we can close it as quickly as any other loan. We do underwrite those loans, so we have our own, an underwriter in-house that underwrites the CHAFA loans and underwrites the Metro DPA loans, so we're not sending it to anybody or sending it out of here. So, again, a good question. I had another question about income limit. Isn't it? My lender told me it was around 50,000. So it's not. Obviously, we're at 162,960 on CHAFA. We're at 195,600. I'm going to explain, without running any particular lenders under the bus, why many lenders will tell you disparaging things about down payment assistance. A, they're a little more complicated to do if you're not used to doing them, and B, most lenders make a little bit less money on these than they do on their regular loans. So, a lot of times they're just not going to make them sound all that great. We do a lot of them, so So we certainly would never discourage anybody from using a program that's going to benefit them. So let me go back to, I want to go back to the new programs with CHAFA. There's some really, really great programs that just came out, and they allow basically for a significantly larger amount of down payment assistance. The first one is called First Generation, and First Generation is for those individuals who are the first generation in their family to own a home. So they're going to look at there's an affidavit they sign that say that they have not owned a house and that their parents have not owned a house. And if that's the case, then they qualify for the First Generation program. If we go to anybody who spent any time in foster care, they automatically qualify for First Generation. So those are kind of the ways to do it. They won't go back to grandparents. So if their grandparents owned one, they don't consider that. They're only considering your parents, the borrower's parents, and themselves. And so, and the big difference with that is, if somebody's buying a $400,000 house or they borrow $400,000, the down payment assistance for them is going to be $16,000. And if they're on the First Generation program, instead of 16, they get 25. Again, all of that money, any of that additional money can be used towards buyer's agent commissions, closing costs, prepaids, and down payments. So it does really allow you, we've done a few of these already. We're starting to get some of these in. We've done a few of these. We've had no issues with them whatsoever. They worked really good. We had one recently where they still got $7,000 in seller paid concessions. We were able to use all $7,000 to cover closing costs and prepaids, and then we were able to take the whole $25,000 and apply it to their loan amount. So instead of having a 3.5% down payment, they ended up with almost an 8% down payment, and they had $25,000 that they're not paying any interest or making any payments on. So it lowered their payment by almost $160 a month. So this is a really good program to bring up if you've got those clients that just don't quite have enough money, or if maybe they're just barely there. It's a good thing to know about as far as the First Generation program. Again, great program. Similarly, they expanded their home access program. So historically, the home access program has been for disabled people or people with a disability in their household. It has been limited to a few lenders, and the income limits were very, very low, like $55,000, $60,000. And I think that may be where some of this misconception on income limits come in. But they recently expanded that, and now the income limits are the same as they are for the First Step program. So it's $162,960 for the income limit for home access. Home access is specifically for those people who have a disability in their household. Doesn't have to be the buyer. It has to be somebody in their household. So it can be children, they can be taking care of an elderly parent that is disabled, or it can be them or their spouse that is disabled. So you have to have somebody that's permanently disabled in your household. And if you do, you get, again, $25,000 instead of the 4%. And the really nice benefit with home access is they also give you a lower interest rate. Typically, that interest rate is about 0.25% lower than what the regular First Step rate is. So, and almost 0.5% lower than what the Smart Step rate is. So, a great program. We have. It's really taken off. We've seen, we have a lot of people that, end up, there's a disability in their family, and, we'll be talking to them and they say they get, SSDI for one of their children. All of a sudden they're able to qualify for this program. When they first came out, they said that we could not use any of those funds towards buyer's agent commission. August 30th, they changed that along with all their other programs. So if you do have that person that can do, or that is in that situation, or they have a disability, this is a great program to tell them about, send our way. It's there's one other change that they made only to home access, but with somebody with a disability working the home access program, they can have a non-occupying co-borrower. That is the only program CHAFA allows for a non-occupying co-borrower. But if you have a disabled person and a relative wants to, co-sign for them and help them get a house, they can now do that and still get the $25,000 in down payment assistance. So that's going to be, those are those are game changers for people with a disability in their house and first generation people. It is a huge difference when it comes to monthly payment. It's a huge difference when it comes to needing money out of pocket. For those that want to come into a property and put $1,000 out of pocket and they're a first generation, you can usually do that without any seller concessions. Same with the home access. If we have some, if we're covering some, agent commissions, then maybe we have to get some seller concessions to zero them out. But the exciting part is that these two new programs are out here, and they're going to work for so many people. I think it's going to be just a game changer for a ton of people. So I'm going to take a few more questions. Here I got a question. Can you combine the programs? What about first responders, teachers, medical, etc.? Is there anything specific in it for them? So you can't really combine the programs. They're going to be, they both come, Metro DPA and CHAFA come with the first mortgage, and you have to use their first mortgage to get the down payment assistance. There are some things out there where you can, some county programs that will give you a little bit more money. Sometimes it's $1,000 or a small grant, and you can use that along with CHAFA or Metro DPA. As far as first responders, we have a hero program. So we provide $1,000 credit, even on down payment assistance loans. We provide $1,000 credit for anybody who is what we consider a hero, a first responder, policeman, fireman, medical professional, teacher, anybody in any of those fields. We provide an automatic $1,000 for them for a credit towards their closing costs, and that has nothing to do with the down payment assistance. If you have 20% down and you're doing a conventional and you are a firefighter or you're a policeman, we're going to give you that credit regardless. So thanks for the question on that. Let's see. Okay, and as agents, you probably are it's probably something you're wondering. I got a question earlier that said, is it even possible in a tight market to get a CHAFA loan or a down payment assistance loan accepted by a seller? And if, you guys are out there selling, you're not, the market's not quite as tight as it certainly has been, certainly not as quite as tight as it was in the pandemic, but, it is possible. I don't think we've had a lot of pushback on, when people are using down payment assistance. We work with a lot of agents know us out there, and we really haven't had, I think that, the fact that we get everything done and we get it done quickly, we really haven't had much pushback on any of that. And it's during the pandemic, I think we, just about each of the years of the pandemic, we did nearly 500 help 500 families, and we used down payment assistance, and that's when people were bidding $20,000 over asking, and at that time we were actually, people that had money were using down payment assistance to put themselves in a more competitive situation. So I think really it just gives people the more options, and most of the people we see have some money, they just need a little bit of help. So I don't think that's certainly not a barrier to getting under contract, and definitely not today. So again, thanks for that question. Does everyone need to be a first-time home buyer, and what is a first-time home buyer? So no, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. Other than a couple of the programs, there's no restriction on being a first-time home buyer. But what is a first-time home buyer? That's somebody who hasn't owned a house in the last 3 years, so the last 36 months. So it doesn't mean they couldn't have ever owned a home. We have people that come in all the time that owned houses 20 years ago or 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, and they're still considered first-time home buyers. So that opens up all of the programs to them. But certainly don't tell somebody not to apply for down payment assistance because they happen not to be a first-time home buyer. We have people that own homes currently, and as long as they don't own a home that's financed with CHAFA or Metro DPA, they can keep that property even if they make it a rental or they're selling it, and then they can use CHAFA or Metro DPA again. There's no restriction on that. There are some restrictions that when the programs that require you to be a first-time home buyer, obviously it doesn't work for those. But you can definitely get down payment assistance and not be a first-time home buyer. So certainly don't discourage anybody from applying on that. I got this question: can you use down payment funds to pay off debt to qualify for your buyer? Unfortunately, that is a restriction that they will not allow. They won't allow us to use those down payment assistance funds to pay off debt. Ironically, we were just doing a training, and they had gone through VA loans, and with a VA loan, you can actually use seller concessions as long as they don't go above the maximum limit. You can use seller concessions to pay off your buyer's debt to help them qualify. So that's not something we've done in the past, and so I thought that was an interesting tidbit that 36 years in the industry, I didn't know that, so it was a good thing to learn. So are they all FHA borrowers? So I get a lot of questions on FHA loans because a lot of people will call me and say, I haven't done an FHA. A lot of agents will call me and say, I haven't worked with an FHA loan in years. How bad are they? I am of the opinion that FHA is the easiest loan that you can do out there, quite honestly. I think from a qualifying standpoint and flexibility standpoint, they're very easy loans to do. Some people are concerned with property. Mostly we get safety issues when there's wires hanging on the wall, or people forget to put a carbon monoxide detector in, or the big one is probably chipping paint. When there's really paint falling off the house, sometimes we get conditioned for that. But that's really the only difference between conventional and FHA. To answer the question, is it all FHA? It's not. So depending on your credit score and your qualifications, people can do CHAFA and Metro DPA, either FHA or conventional. CHAFA allows USDA and VA as well. So you're not stuck with just FHA. It just kind of depends on your qualifying. People ask me, why would I do a VA loan and do a CHAFA, get CHAFA? Well, you might have a borrower that has no money, none. And they're going to scrape up the $1,000 or the $1,500 in earnest money, and they have nothing else. And to get them to qualify, they need to be at maybe a lower interest rate. You don't have any seller concessions, so that's when we would go to CHAFA, do an FHA loan, get the use the down payment assistance. We would put as much down on the loan to limit the amount they're paying interest on, as opposed to the amount they're not paying interest on, and cover all the closing costs. So same with USDA, it's 100% financing. So when we can strategically use that extra money that you're not paying any interest on to reduce the amount that you are paying interest on, it just makes sense. So and interest rates, sometimes interest rates are right there with down payment assistance, where the market is at 6% and their rates are at 6% or at 6.125. That's kind of where that's kind of about where the where they're hitting right now, where they're just slightly higher. Refinancing CHAFA loans, that's a question we get. What happens, when I want to refinance down the road? You can refinance a CHAFA loan if you have the silent second. Right now, as we speak here today, CHAFA is not allowing, or they're not subordinating to anybody else, and they don't have a refinance program available. I've talked to the people at CHAFA. They think that in the next 60 days there will be a refinance program available, and so I think that will be something that will definitely help, because otherwise what you have to do is you refinance and you have to pay off that silent second and roll it into the first. When rates come down a little bit further, it'll certainly make sense. I think that you basically, for every 1% of interest rate that we get a drop, the estimate is there's another 5 million home buyers who qualify to purchase in the United States. So, as these interest rates come down, obviously we're all going to feel that inventory scrunch, but we'll take it while it is here. We'll encourage our people to get out there and be shopping for homes as quickly as they can, because I think when rates do come down, we are going to see we are going to see that market change a little bit. Let's see what else I've got here. I got asked if we could use DPA funds for agent commissions. Want to repeat, CHAFA has approved that 100% on everything. Metro DPA is still in negotiations to try and they haven't given any clarity on that, but right now we do have an option. We also have, like with Metro DPA, if somebody has, they make $180,000 a year, they make too much money for CHAFA, and they have the money for down payment, but they maybe don't have the money to cover commissions and closing costs. We can, at that point, we could use their money to cover your commissions and use the down payment assistance money to cover their down payment and closing costs. So I think that I think that would be the way to go if we have to use Metro DPA. So anyway, again, great questions on that. If you guys have any other questions, as we're going through there, please pop them in that chat, and I will try to answer whatever we can. Let's see here. Let's see if I have any other ones I want to cover here. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to go over to some other questions we had gotten earlier. I get how much does a borrower have to have invested in a CHAFA program or in the down payment assistance program? So if you get some closing costs paid by the seller and we use the full 4%, the minimum for a CHAFA loan that a borrower has to contribute is $1,000. So $1,000, it can be gifted to them, doesn't have to actually be their own, but they have to be responsible for that $1,000. Metro DPA actually does not have a limit. So you can put $0 down with Metro DPA if you get enough seller concessions or you're in the right situation, and they don't have to, they would get, if they put $3,000 in earnest money down, they'll get a check back for $3,000 at closing if you have enough in seller concessions. Anytime you guys have a borrower, you're putting in, you get them qualified, or you're putting in, putting in offers or anything, certainly reach out to us. Hopefully we're your lender, and we can help you guys with how much you're going to need, how much they're going to need, and all those fun things. So let's see, what else do I got here? Yeah, I got another question earlier about, I think we answered this already, but it was kind of like, why does my lender just discourage his borrowers from using down payment assistance? And quite honestly, the answer to that is, if you have a lender that's discouraging your people from using down payment assistance, you probably need a new lender. If it's what's right for, your client, that's what they should get. If you have, up to $25,000 that somebody can get, and you're not utilizing that $25,000, then even though you make a little bit less on it as a loan officer, I don't know that you're really doing your job the way you should be doing it. Also want to cover that CHAFA's maximum down payment assistance is $25,000. So if you get up around that $750 range, $780 range, you might run into a situation where you don't have a full 4% because you're going to be limited to the $25,000. Metro DPA has no limit, so that's another reason sometimes we might go to Metro DPA, because you may be able to go 4%, which 4% might be $32,000 or $31,000, and so you can get more from Metro DPA in that same realm. It is a game changer, even though it's not great that you have to pay back the Metro DPA loan now, silent second now. It does really provide some options for people. I think the cosigner, being able to use that program with cosigner is great. Having the higher income limits is great. No max on the down payment assistance is really helpful too. So I think that the change they made, let's face it, they weren't getting any loans and they weren't getting anybody to use the program because their rate was 8.125, and people just couldn't afford that. You just can't afford that payment. So unless you were in that very specific, small percentage that absolutely needed that, I just don't think that just don't think you had any of that coming in. So I'm going to do, let's see, I had a few other questions here. Yeah, just another one. Any specific programs for veterans? The veterans are going to fall into our HERO program. So whether they do a straight VA loan or they do a VA loan with down payment assistance, again, they're going to get $1,000 credit from us. If you have clients and you want to send them to us, certainly, yeah, we'll send you an email after this is all done with our contact info. You can always go to nickbarta.com. We have all the information on there as far as, where to catch me. My cell phone's out there. Tiffany can probably even throw my cell phone into the chat. That would be great. So you guys, don't be afraid to call me with questions. That's what we do all day. I have a whole team that helps me with the qualifying side and the production side. So we do a lot of loans, help a lot of borrowers. And so certainly that's something that we would love to help you guys with too. There was a question here. Are there any down payment assistance programs that don't require repayment? Up until a week ago, Metro DPA was like that, but they're not anymore. So what we have left is we have the CHAFA grant. The CHAFA grant is a program you do not have to pay back. It is 3% of the loan amount instead of 4%. The drawback to it's a great program if you can, if you're willing to close on it with a higher interest rate and you qualify, and you can keep that loan for 7 or 8 months. You can refinance it after that point, but and you don't have to pay it back. The biggest drawback is the interest rate is significantly higher, almost a percentage point higher than what it would be for the 4% silent second. So we don't have a lot of people that use the grant. However, it does exist. It is out there. It is available. If it does fit you and what you're looking to do, a lot of people will use that when they're just like, hey, I have the money, but I want to take advantage of kind of getting this free money. So they will do that. They will tough it out as far as making that higher payment for 7 months. And then they'll do a streamline refinance or a regular refinance and lower their payment back down, and then they end up getting the free money. So it does exist. We don't do a whole lot of them. We don't see a lot of people that want to do the grant, but it is out there, and we're happy to entertain that if that's what works best for you. Let's see here. Yeah, and again, how much can I receive in down payment assistance? It is 4% unless you are first generation or you have a disability in your family. Those are $25,000. Everything else is 4%. Metro DPA and the other CHAFA programs are 4% of the loan amount. So if you're borrowing $400,000, it's going to be 4% of that, or $16,000. The grant is going to be 3%. So for every $100,000 you borrow, you would get a $3,000 grant that you don't have to pay back. So that's kind of the amount that is out there. It is for purchasing a home. I get that question all the time, probably more than anything is, hey, I need rental assistance. Unfortunately, this does not work for rental assistance. This is simply for, purchasing a home. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Let's see if there's anything else, if I've gotten any other questions. How long does it take? How long does it take to get pre-approved for your down payment assistance loan? We do those in, if we get an application in today, usually within a couple hours, we've pulled credit, ran automated underwriting findings, and asked for some income documentation. So once we get through that, once we get your documentation back, it's usually the pre-approval is issued, very shortly after that. Most of them happen, within 4 hours to 24 hours, depending on how quickly those borrowers get that information back to us. If you're a real estate agent, you send those over. We try to communicate that back to you as quickly as we can, obviously give you an idea of what we're looking at. If somebody does apply and their credit's not quite where it needs to be, we'll certainly work with them to try and get to try and get their credit up to where it is, give them a few pointers, especially if it's just a few points. There's sometimes some things we can do. So we work with those clients. We monitor their credit for as long as they're in our system. If their credit score does jump back up kind of above that 620 mark, which is what you need for CHFA, then they're going to get a letter from us and a phone call from us, and we'll try to re-engage and then bring them back to that real estate agent that we initially talked to with them. So let me see if there's anything else. If anybody else has any questions, certainly throw them in chat. I think I'm running about to the end of my time here. Let's see. We got first-time home buyers. Yeah, and I mean, there was a question about single parents. Neither of these programs have any specific extra benefit for a single parent. However, you do qualify just like anybody else. You don't have to be married to do it. I got that question as well. If you have two borrowers and they're not married or they're not together, if you have two individuals that want to purchase a home together, as long as they're both living in the property, they can certainly do that without any issues whatsoever. So with that, guys, I think that covers it. If you have any questions, reach out to me, anytime. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We'll put this on our YouTube channel, and I'm sure you'll see it out there on our different social media channels. But if there are any questions, please shoot them over to me. You can always ask me later. Give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, whatever I can do to help. Good luck out there. Hopefully you guys, depending on what side you're on, hopefully you buy, you're very successful going forward, and I wish you the best of luck. Thanks for joining me. Take care.